Reading books in French is a very good exercise. Anyway, reading is a good activity. But have you ever given up because it's too complicated or maybe it just takes too long? So here in this video, I want to give you advice and techniques how to make reading a book in a foreign language, in French, or actually any language that you're learning to make it easier. So we are not going through a list of writers or books. It is really just advices. My name is Sebastian. I'm French teacher. And I like to give such advice to my students so that they can practice the language regularly and in class and outside classes. So check out my program in the link. First, it is to adapt the novel. So really, the advice I give to all my students is to start with comic books, bande dessinée. You know, it's really different. It's not like superheroes comic books, not at all. So bande dessinée in Belgium, France, and Switzerland, well, it's a different kind of stories. There's really every kind of stories. Tintin, it's already a good example, but there are so many others. And there are bande dessinée, well, for kids, teenagers, and adults. So you will find something that you really like. And the advantage in these countries is that you can find them in the public library. So you don't have to buy them. You can just borrow them. There are many advantages with comic books, bande dessinée. Well, there are conversation with characters. There are no long descriptions. So then the story is really dynamic. And usually, because it's a conversation, they really speak like the normal way. They use like present tense, past tense, future tense, but no complicated tenses. So it's really practical to study. Tintin, well, is well known. You might know also Asterix et Obelix. It's really great stories, but maybe, it's complicated because, you know, the humor is really about like playing words. So it might be a bit complicated, but there are many others that I personally like. Torgal, Largo Winch, Les Tuniques Bleues, Le Combat Ordinaire, Retour à la Terre, many others. Just go to the library and borrow these books. But then, what about books and literatures? So here, well, it's also important to adapt your novel. So maybe don't go with like the great writers, Victor Hugo, Baudelaire. That'll be too complicated. So maybe some contemporary writers. But again, I'm not giving a list here. There's really tips to make reading easier, French or any language you're learning. First advice is, well, translate at the beginning, maybe the first chapter. You don't have to translate absolutely everything, but, you know, most of the vocabulary and verbs and tenses. You know that writers, they all have a specific vocabulary and also the way they write, the way they make their sentences. So it is really good to get acquainted, like to recognize their style and their vocabulary. So translate at beginning, first chapter, maybe like enough. And then second advice, well, stop translating. Then just read the book. So you had learned already some specific vocabulary and you don't need to understand absolutely everything. Otherwise, it really takes too long. So just read And anyway, if you understand like the keywords, you can fill the blanks. You can still understand the story. Translate only if there are some specific words that come again and again. Otherwise, it might be difficult to understand the story. So if you see like really a repeated word that you don't know, you can check. Also because it might be some specific words specific to the story. If we talk about like a police investigation, you might find some slang words. Ripoux, indique, balance, taupe, and many others. If you don't know, just check in the dictionary. But beside that, you don't have to translate everything. But now, there is something you will come across. Passé simple. So, simple past tense, that one is complicated. It is not dead, not at all. But it is a tense that we don't use when talking, when speaking. We use it when writing. And this is not old-fashioned. We still use it in books, but also on articles, in newspaper, on internet. So you don't need to learn it in order to use it. It's enough just to recognize it. For instance, here I put some examples. You see the endings. So it's quite different as what you had learned maybe. But yeah, for literature, it's important to recognize it. And then final advice is, well, choose well and give up if necessary. There is no problem, no shame in giving up reading a book because it's too complicated, it's too long, or just not interesting. So that is the advantage, again, just to go to a public library to borrow books. Then if you don't like, you can return it and, well, no big deal. And also, by choosing well, maybe you can also choose a book that you've read already in your language. Let's say that you've read The Lord of the Rings and you enjoyed the book. Then you can try in French now. No problem if it's translated. Anyway, it's interesting because you have all the vocabulary and the sentences. But because you've read it already, then you know what the story is about and you know, okay, the vocabulary. For instance, I really enjoy reading 100 Years of Solitude, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I read it first in French, and afterwards I read it in Spanish when I was learning the language. And I really enjoy both time. So you can totally do that. I hope these recommendations are useful to you. I say goodbye and see you in the next video.